Russia does not fundamentally fear the United States in a direct existential way. The primary reason for this is stark and well understood: nuclear weapons. Moscow commands one of the world's largest and most sophisticated nuclear arsenals. This arsenal is not merely symbolic, it forms the bedrock of Russian strategic thinking. The doctrine of mutually assured destruction, often referred to as MAD, remains a chillingly effective deterrent. It posits that any full-scale nuclear attack by one superpower on another would inevitably result in catastrophic retaliation, leading to the annihilation of both. This grim calculus prevents either side from contemplating a first strike, creating a precarious but stable standoff. This nuclear guarantee allows Russia a degree of operational freedom it would otherwise lack. Knowing that a direct all-out military confrontation with the United States is exceedingly unlikely, Moscow can pursue its interests more assertively in other domains. The Kremlin understands that Washington, for all its conventional military superiority, is equally constrained by the nuclear equation. This reality shapes the entire geopolitical landscape, ensuring that direct conflict remains off the table. The sheer destructive power held by both nations means that caution and a degree of predictability, at least in the nuclear sphere, are paramount for global survival and for Russia's own security. The concept of deterrence is central to Russia's defense posture. Its nuclear forces are maintained in a state of readiness, designed to convince any potential adversary that the costs of aggression would far outweigh any conceivable benefits. This is not about seeking conflict, but rather about preventing it on terms that would be disadvantageous to Russia. The leadership in Moscow frequently reminds the world of its nuclear capabilities, not as an idle threat, but as a statement of fact underpinning its sovereignty and strategic autonomy. This nuclear shield, therefore, is the ultimate insurance policy against foreign intervention, or an attempt at regime change orchestrated from abroad. Consequently, while tensions may rise and fall and rhetoric can become heated, the underlying strategic reality imposed by nuclear weapons limits the scope of potential conflict. Russia can absorb economic sanctions, diplomatic pressure, and even proxy confrontations, secure in the knowledge that its core territory and sovereignty are protected by an almost impenetrable nuclear deterrent. This understanding is crucial for interpreting Russia's actions on the world stage. It is not that Russia is reckless, but rather that its strategic calculations are made with the nuclear backstop firmly in mind, allowing for a different calibration of risk compared to non-nuclear states. Russia's national psyche is deeply marked by a history of surviving existential threats. The country has endured numerous invasions and devastating wars throughout its long past. The campaigns of Napoleon Bonaparte in the 19th century and Adolf Hitler in the 20th century are particularly seared into the collective memory. These conflicts brought immense suffering and destruction, yet Russia ultimately persevered, repelling the invaders. This history has forged a powerful sense of national pride and a narrative of resilience. Russians see themselves as a people capable of withstanding immense hardship and emerging, often against the odds, victorious or at least intact. This historical experience cultivates a mindset that is not easily intimidated by external pressure. The belief in Russia's ability to endure and overcome challenges is a potent force in its political culture. Leaders often invoke these historical parallels to rally support and to frame contemporary geopolitical struggles as continuations of past efforts to defend the motherland. This narrative of resilience contributes to a strategic patience, a willingness to play the long game, believing that Russia can outlast its adversaries. Such deep-seated national pride means that threats are often met with defiance rather than fear, as the nation draws strength from its storied past of survival. The practical lesson drawn from these historical invasions is the critical importance of strategic depth and buffer zones. Russia's vast territory has often been its greatest ally, allowing armies to retreat, regroup, and stretch enemy supply lines to breaking point. Consequently, regions on Russia's periphery, such as Ukraine and Crimea, are viewed not merely as areas of influence, but as vital components of its national security architecture. These territories are seen as essential buffers protecting Russia's core. Any perceived encroachment into these zones is therefore interpreted by Moscow as a direct threat to its fundamental security interests, triggering strong and often assertive responses. From Moscow's perspective, the actions of NATO, particularly its eastward expansion, are viewed through this historical lens of vulnerability. What Western nations often describe as defensive measures or the sovereign choices of independent states, Russia perceives as a gradual encirclement and a direct challenge to its security perimeter. The desire to maintain a sphere of influence in its near abroad is therefore not just about imperial ambition, but also deeply rooted in these historical anxieties and the perceived need to prevent potential threats from materializing close to its borders. This leads to a cycle of action and reaction, where Russia's defensive moves are seen as aggressive by the West, further fueling tensions. Russian leaders often publicly highlight what they perceive as internal weaknesses and divisions within the United States and other Western nations. Political polarization, social unrest, economic disparities, and debates over national identity are all scrutinized by Moscow. The Kremlin views these internal issues as potential constraints on America's ability to project power consistently or to engage in sustained, bold foreign policy actions. Russian media frequently amplifies narratives of Western decline or societal breakdown, suggesting that the United States may lack the internal cohesion and political will necessary to effectively counter Russian strategic objectives in the long term. This perception shapes Russia's risk assessment. To counterbalance the influence of the United States and its allies, Russia has actively cultivated partnerships with a range of other countries. The strategic alignment with China is paramount among these. This relationship is multifaceted, encompassing economic cooperation, coordinated diplomatic stances, and joint military exercises. While not a formal military alliance in the NATO sense, the Sino-Russian partnership presents a significant counterweight to Western dominance on the global stage. Furthermore, Russia maintains relationships with other nations, such as Iran and North Korea, which also seek to challenge the United States-led international order, creating a network of states resistant to Western pressure. These partnerships serve multiple purposes for Russia. Economically, they offer alternative markets, investment sources, and technological collaboration, reducing vulnerability to Western sanctions. Diplomatically, they provide support in international forums like the United Nations, allowing Russia to resist Western initiatives and promote its own agenda. In some instances, these relationships also involve security cooperation, further complicating Western strategic planning. By diversifying its international connections, Russia aims to demonstrate that it is not isolated and can operate effectively outside the framework of Western-dominated institutions, thereby enhancing its own global standing and resilience. The belief that the United States is hampered by its internal problems, coupled with the strengthening of alternative international partnerships, emboldens Russian foreign policy. If American leadership is seen as distracted or divided, Moscow may calculate that the risks of undertaking assertive actions are lower. This does not mean Russia seeks direct confrontation, but rather that it feels more confident in pursuing its interests in contested regions or through asymmetric means. The perception of a declining or preoccupied West provides Russia with perceived opportunities to reshape aspects of the global order to better suit its own strategic preferences and security concerns, without immediate fear of overwhelming reprisal. Russia has developed formidable capabilities in the cyber domain, recognizing this as a potent asymmetric tool. Cyber operations can be used for intelligence gathering, disrupting critical infrastructure, and conducting influence campaigns. These activities often fall below the threshold of outright war, allowing Russia to project power and challenge adversaries without triggering a conventional military response. The deniability and ambiguity inherent in cyber activities make them an attractive option for a state seeking to level the playing field against a more powerful conventional opponent. This digital prowess is a key component of Russia's modern statecraft and its ability to exert influence globally. Control over information and the shaping of media narratives are also critical elements of Russia's strategy. Domestically, state-controlled media ensures broad support for government policies and presents a specific worldview to the Russian population. Internationally, outlets like RT and Sputnik aim to disseminate Russia's perspective on global events, challenge Western narratives, and sometimes sow discord or confusion in other countries. This information warfare is seen as an integral part of national security, allowing Russia to define its own story and attempt to influence international public opinion, or at least to muddy the waters and create doubt about prevailing Western viewpoints. Economically, Russia leverages its significant energy exports, particularly natural gas and oil, as a tool of foreign policy. Many European countries remain reliant on Russian energy supplies, creating a degree of interdependence that Moscow can exploit. While Western sanctions have aimed to curtail Russia's economic power, the global demand for energy resources provides a degree of resilience. Russia has also sought to de-dollarize its economy and build up foreign currency reserves to better withstand external financial pressure. This economic maneuvering, combined with its energy clout, gives Moscow additional levers of influence and a capacity to absorb economic shocks. In conclusion, Russia does not operate out of fear of the United States, but rather from a position of calculated strategic realism. It respects American power, acknowledging its military and economic might. However, this respect does not translate into paralysis or subservience. Instead, Russia relies on its nuclear deterrent as an ultimate safeguard, while employing a range of asymmetric tools: cyberpower, information control, energy leverage, and strategic partnerships to pursue its interests. It is a strategy of careful planning, risk management, and a preference for maneuvering in the gray zones of international relations, rather than seeking direct, high-stakes confrontations where it might be outmatched. This approach is born from history, geopolitical necessity, and a distinct understanding of its own strengths and perceived opponent weaknesses.